Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. Abraham Lincoln. Tonight we're going to be looking at overcoming loose lips. And there are plenty of teachers who have loose lips. Well, welcome to our study tonight. We're going to be teaching James chapter 3, 1 to 12. And we want to get a theological background of this one. We want to get an idea of the metaphors that James uses. They're very clear, and we'd like to give some examples to help us deal with our idle words. We certainly don't want them as a teacher. If you have a teacher who cannot control his tongue, doesn't know how to conduct themselves, even in the natural world, you can't have a teacher in a school where they are using harsh language, or they are, saying anything that comes off the tip of their tongue. No, a teacher actually has to mold their conversation according to the curriculum, according to the age group that they're talking to, and they very much have to structure the hour in a very good way. And the classroom where anything can be said by the teacher, eventually they're going to get themselves in trouble. And so you'll even see in the world of teaching in our schools and that a very controlled kind of speech that goes on. Now, there's examples always in that field where somebody isn't, but I can tell you that it generally gets you in trouble. And of course, in our world, now that we have everybody taping everybody else, what we may say, what we thought was in private, can very much be thrown out there and used against us. So, the whole topic of our speech is not only important to the teacher, but to anybody else, especially in public. And so we're going to look at James, and we want to, we definitely want to deal with our idle words. Now, I think idle words are very, very convicting. It's not the planned sermon that generally gives us away, but it's what we say in private, and maybe what we say to ourselves. Those idle words are often, they're capable of saying what's on our mind, and that we say the wrong things very much can happen there. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, we want to get a theological background of James, but I want to be assured that today, if you are a loose-lipped Louis or Louise, then maybe you shouldn't be a teacher. Just a thought. Self-control is what James is talking about here. And I titled my sermon, Overcoming Loose Lips. So, sometimes we can certainly be talking so much that you've seen it where somebody goes on and on and on and on, that we have no idea how we're affecting the audience. Here, of course, the audience literally can't answer back. I like that cartoon. Anyway, but I am reminded again of a cartoon. I would love to display it, but I don't have the license for it. It's not that I couldn't get it. It's a process. So, and in Pickles, the grandfather says to his wife, "You're usually very, very talkative. Why are you so quiet lately? Is there something wrong?" She answers, "No." Then she explains her answer. "We've been married a long time, and maybe I just run out of things to say." And then, of course, Grandpa responds, "Heck, I ran out of things to say 40 years ago." Of course, she answers, "Yeah, I noticed." Anyway, Pickles is a good cartoon to follow. I like it a lot. Now, getting a background, okay, a theological background of James, we need to look at James chapter 15, verses 11, 14, and 17 and 19. Okay? Not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth defiles this man. And then, of course, thinking about the blind guides, to get a real background here, read Matthew 15, verses 1 to 20. All right. For brevity's sake, I'm not going to do that. But the false teachers are trying to trick Jesus into saying something that would be used against him. Okay? And they never could do it, but they tried and tried and tried. So Jesus said, "Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind." They've been blinded, the Bible tells us, by the devil, who blinds people to the truth of the gospel. Okay? And if the blind leads the blind, both of them will fall into the ditch. Verse 17. Do you not understand? Whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated. But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart of man. They defile the man. So, for out of the heart proceeds the evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, and blasphemy. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with an unwashed hands does not defile a man. So, clearly, Jesus is talking about speech that is hurtful. And all the activities that Jesus mentioned is harmful to humans and their relationships. So he's talking about, indeed, important stuff. All right. Now, in James chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, it says, "My brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we all receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things." Notice the "we" here. Okay? We shall receive a stricter judgment. We all stumble in many ways or many things. James includes himself in this. He has stumbled. I have stumbled too often with things that I say that I don't really think through, maybe. And, yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm not a hypocrite, but I'm not perfect. But I stumbled in many ways. Yeah, I get it. This is a very convicting passage. Okay. I'm still working on controlling my tongue. Okay. Working towards that maturity. If we all stumble in many things, if anyone does not stumble in word, he's a perfect man, able also to bridle his own body. So that's my goal, is to be mature. Obviously, in my maturity, in speaking and teaching, that doesn't mean that I'm not without stumbling. There's still, the tongue is a very hard thing. Uh, there are so much stuff that's in our brains. We just can't filter it out. How we think often works its way out, and it does it through the floodgate of the mouth. And oh my. So, even in these programs that I'm producing here, I have to follow a script. I have to follow a process because, I could be thinking of something that I think is kind of good, and then I say it. Then later I think, no, I should have stayed with the plan. I would have done better. So anyway, I feel like, yeah, this is very convicting. Okay. Now, why do we have stricter judgment? Why? Well, Swindoll points out, first, teachers are responsible to speak the truth, not opinion. Secondly, whatever a teacher says affects lives. And that's very, very important. When I used to teach children, I knew that an illustration was probably only going to reach possibly anyway, one of the kids. Okay. I knew an illustration in and of itself would hit home with every kid because kids don't learn like that. They don't learn like that. They learn totally as individuals. So you throw something out, one kid is really, he grabs it and gets a hold of it. Other kids, they're still not with you on that. So what you have to do is teaching with children, you have to show many stories, many different illustrations. And as you do that carefully, you're going to reach more of your audience because of the individual nature of how they learn. It's just it's just a discipline that you have to do in order to be a good teacher for children. And so we always have those things that we can stumble on. Indeed, we put bits into the horse's mouth and they may obey us. Okay? And we turn their whole body. Look at ships. Although they are very large and with fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder, whatever the pilot desires. And so with these two illustrations, you have very large things, a horse and a ship. Even in Paul's day, they had ships that were over 200 feet long, controlled by a small rudder. And they had ships that could bring 250, 270 passengers, and so they had large ships. But these ships had very small rudders that controlled the ship's doing. How much more so today? We have huge ships, huge. I was on a cruise ship once that had 14 stories to it. 14. Okay. And some of them were below the water. most of them were above the water, but, you know, big ship, huge. You could actually go for walks around the ship and get quite a workout. It was great. The ship was so big that you barely felt the ocean's movement unless there was a storm, and then you would be feeling a lot. But these ships were huge, so most of the time you didn't even know you were on a ship. But they're still controlled by a very small device called the rudder. And the same with the horse, okay? We've tamed a lot of animals, but, you know, we haven't been able to train the tongue. So even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things, okay? And now, we know, for example, that James here is not condemning teaching. The church needs willing, gifted, trained, qualified speakers, teachers. But James is warning about hurrying into it without realizing the serious responsibility it is. And, you know, I learned that myself years ago, knowing that when I would go up and represent the Lord, teaching for him, that I had to get right with God, and I had to make sure that I was putting into check what I needed to put in check in order for the Bible to be transparent for the audience. And, you know, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with that, but there's also a lot of training. And that's, you know, what we need. You know, we don't need loose lips Louie. We have too many of those on the TV, you know, my goodness, all over the place. So we have to be careful of that, okay? Now, in 5 and 6, we see how great a forest fire, or a forest, a little fire kindles. A match, a spark, you know, this is not little, but, you know, a bolt of lightning. But very often, forest fires are set by people. And here, James, he's got his rendition of only you can prevent forest fires right here. And so a very small spark can cause a great forest fire. And we see this in California all the time and other places as well. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among its members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature. Okay, and it sets on fire by hell itself, or by hell. Now, a few things here. We have to recognize that what we say really does matter. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yeah, sticks and stones do hurt. There is real bullying, real fighting, and real damage that people do. But words can be very hurtful. So we have to come up with something to try to stop it. Well, how about a word catcher? We got somebody whose job it is to catch bad words. We have dog catchers, and they catch dogs that are randomly walking around without an owner's tag. And they catch wild animals and so forth in our cities. You know, I don't know in Chicago if they go after cats, rats, or coyotes. I think all those animals have a freedom in Chicago. But anyway, word catchers. Word catchers act like dog catchers here. One of them says, "Careful now, careful. That one's a mean one. That's an awful word. Who would let such a thing loose? Who would say something so stupid, so ignorant, so hurtful? Some guy just got worked up and unleashed on his wife. Oh, I hate to see what that young girl feels now. Probably feels like shredded wheat. Well, let's get this poor pit bull of a word off the street before it can bite someone else." All right. So we know words hurt and can be abusive. Can be abusive. How horrible. Now, I always try to show you something from Israel that can be an encouragement to you that things really did happen there. That the things you see in the Bible often have a real location where these things come from. And our word for hell comes from the Greek word Gehenna. Okay? Now, Gehenna refers to the hidden valley, which runs along the south side of Jerusalem. In the days of Jesus and James, the residents of Jerusalem stacked all their garbage and filth in Gehenna, where it was burned off. Okay? Now, I'd like to show you a couple pictures of Gehenna. First of all, let me show you a picture of what the whole valley looks like. Okay, this comes from Wayne Stiles, and you can see along the bright colored wall there towards the bottom of the picture a hillside and valley that circles in the dark green there around the Temple Mount, and that's the Hinnom Valley. That's the Hinnom Valley, and you're looking from the south, and you're looking towards the Judean wilderness there in the background. It's really a nice picture. He does such a nice job with his drone. Now, here we have also by a guide by Wayne Stiles how to look at this particular part of Jerusalem. It has 3 valleys. It has 2 hills. One we call Mount Olives. Mount Olives is on the eastern side, and then we have the western hill. In the middle, we have a couple valleys, the Kidron Valley and the Central Valley, and then further west, to the west and south, we have the Hinnom Valley, okay? And of course, you have the ice cream cone being the Temple Mount, and the cone being David's city, and the 2 buns are the 2 hills, Mount Olives and the Western Hill. This is actually a very good way to understand geography and direction. So you have at the Temple Mount is the north, at the end of David's city is the south, and the valleys there as well. I think that's a great map, don't you? Now, here again is another picture of the Hinnom Valley, and not sure who took this picture, but it's a great shot. And here in the valley, Okay? Here in the valley, in Jesus and James' day, they burnt garbage. And it was a continual garbage burn pit. And it always had a fire going. And that was used in their time as a metaphor of hell. And even today, there isn't really any building there. It's still just a hill and valley, but they no longer burn garbage there. Okay, but they did in the Lord's day, and that's what comes to play here when you look at verse 6 is set on fire by hell itself, and that's what they're actually recalling in our mind, which I think is kind of cool. For every kind of beast, bird, reptile, creature of the sea is tamed and has been tamed by mankind. We can think of all kinds of animals that we domesticized. Some of the wild animals we've even done some training with, but they're a little they're less predictable. But no one can tame the tongue. No one can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil. It's full of deadly poison. And like we see in an abusive relationship, poison words. And now a lot of times the tongue can be very clever in its abuse. You have a compliment, and then you have the exact opposite of the compliment put together in the same sentence. The meaning is negative. We're very skilled at that. And, we hurt people by what we say, and we defile people by what we say, and we actually defile ourselves. We're speaking sinful things. So, like I told you, this is a very convicting passage of Scripture. Now, with it, we bless God the Father, and with it, we curse men who have been made in a multitude of God. Now, I have stumbled in many things, and I'm afraid I've stumbled here as well. My same mouth can bless God, but that same mouth can curse people or men or women or in my home. Oh, both things. From the same mouth comes blessing and cursing. My brother, these things ought not to be so. And I'm telling you, I'm convicted because, I too have stumbled here very egregiously. Now, I have learned in life to come to grips with this and understand the source of it and work on it to be better. But I'll tell you, the tongue is a very uncontrollable creature in our bodies, and it can mess up everything. Okay? Now, in James, he's not condoning silence or promoting it. We do have to speak, but we do need self-control. Okay? We do need teachers that are very skilled. And look at verse 11. Does a spring send forth water and bitter from the same opening? Can a fig tree, my brother, bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Thus no spring can yield both salt and fresh water. Yet our tongue has the ability to do both good and bad. Okay? A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. And this takes us right back to one of the things that James wants us to do, and that is to bear good fruit. And he's going to get very specific in the fruit that he wants us to bear in our next lesson in verses 13 to 18. But that's his goal. We want to be doers of the word, not just hearers only. And we want to apply God's word, not just where everybody can see it, like a sermon. We want to also do it in our secret moments, our private moments, and most importantly, we want to do it about the tongue. Why do we say the things we shouldn't? You know, the tongue defiles, the tongue defies, it rebels against God, and the tongue displays. Oh, it does all of these things. Okay? And so I want to be a better speaker. I want better out of my tongue. I don't want to let everything just come out. And even what doesn't come out, I want to take the Lord and start to clean it up. You know, these are some real practical ways we can look at this. We've all stumbled, you know, but we're encouraged here by James not to give in, but to keep on putting up the good fight and getting better control of what we say. And when we're older, tongue control can even be more difficult. And so I encourage you very much to be aware of that and, make it a challenge for yourself. I know I'm getting older and I'm saying things maybe that I wouldn't have said before, but maybe I can still get control of my tongue even in my latter years, and I think that's a good goal. Well, till next time, may God bless you. Imagine being on a ship where you had to row. It would change your idea of a cruise ship. Well, I enjoyed today. I hope you did too. Big thanks for the different people that helped me on this video. And make sure you follow and subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Facebook or at our website. Make sure that you push a like and do visit the videos because I add more things than what often we teach in the class.